Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, David and Hoges recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me today in studio is Andrew Hoges, Hoganson. Dan's on a plane or something. It's so hard to keep track of him in the summer, Hoges. It's a new room wherever he records, and then when he says he can't record, I realize I got made fun of for being up north last week and not being able to record. But okay, Dan, why don't you bring your recording stuff on the plane? You can do it from the bathroom.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. Yeah, he's everywhere. We need a Find Friends tracker on him during the summer because once that kid gets out of school, it's just peace out, home slice until September.
I do think that he is one of those people that if he got lost, I don't know where we'd start. It'd be a where in the world is Dan Thompson situation. It's not like he could be like, well, let's check the home and school. It's like he could be anywhere on the planet.
He literally could be.
Okay, well, Hoges, let's just get into it right now. Twins take 2 of 3 from the Tigers. We're going to get to that series in a moment, folks. But this is very important to me. We've talked about this the last couple of episodes. I was out last episode, and the episode prior to me being out, I had referenced that both Dan and Hoges have told me in the past that not scoring a run with bases loaded is acceptable. It may be frustrating, but it's acceptable. And Hoges took great offense at this, that he had never said such things. So here's what we're going to do. I have a special treat for you here, Hoges. So first, I'm going to play Hoges from last episode describing this situation.
Hoges, you and I were slandered quite a bit in the last episode. Listeners, you may have heard this. And Hoges, I think you need to defend yourself here for one particular slight that David had.
Well, I couldn't believe it. He was talking and he's like, you and Hoges always say, it's always possible to score a run when the bases are loaded and there's no outs. And he said it in that exact tone of voice. So I had to redo the voice. I've never said that before. If you have the bases loaded and no outs, you absolutely should score a run. I don't know where he got that. And frankly, I'm a little offended of his opinion of us that he would think we would have such a horrible baseball opinion.
Now, Hoges, now that would be all fine and good if I had truly just made this up out of thin air, Hoges. But here's the thing. Sometimes I can be like a dog with a bone, Hoges, and I will not let something go. So I went back and I started looking through our text threads and I started looking at old episodes of the podcast. And thankfully, Hoges, you had texted about this instance on a thread, so I was easily able to find both your defense of this subject as well as the original episode. So now, folks, please be patient with the audio quality. We were just starting out. We have learned a lot since our first season on the show. But here's Dan Thompson talking about bases loaded. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. How frustrating to have the bases loaded, no outs, and you can't get a run, Dan? You can't get one run?
Well, that is kind of the state of baseball these days now, right? Because
No, don't give me that garbage. You need to score a run.
I think you need to, but that's the reality of baseball now is we don't have teams that know how to manufacture runs or hit the ball deep. I lament with you, but at the same time, it's like, well, I bet that's more common now than it used to be.
Oh, man, I was absolutely livid. No, it's really not. You need to score a run. Now,
I don't like this.
Yeah, I do, Hoges. I'm a big fan of this. So that was from the Tigers series recap in September of 2022. And
4 years ago. Can we just 4 years ago?
Hey, no, you're the one who said you never said it. This was Hoges' text.
You need to delete this text thread. It should not.
He said, I am agreeing with Dan more often than you lately. What is happening? I respond, in what regard? That's blasphemy. Hoges, the bases loaded, no outs, not scoring a run. Yes, it makes me mad, but I also agree with Dan that it's just sort of the state of baseball right now. It's more of a feast and a famine than it ever was before. I'm sure you don't disagree with that. I was just kind of with him there when I wasn't as upset as I would have been 10 years ago. Okay, Hoges, I have held firm to my belief that this is a ridiculous notion that it should be okay or acceptable that Twins don't score a run with the bases loaded. And now, Hoges, I am expecting an apology. I don't know if you want to kiss my ring, or how you want to go about this?
I just want to delete your text thread. This is not good for me to be able to have this. I forget sometimes that my words are immortalized in stone, apparently. And then we have this podcast now where I talk into this mic, and it still lives on in perpetuity. I will, though, in the spirit of the podcast and the three of us continuing on this journey together, I will submit a formal apology. I was incorrect. I really don't have a leg to stand on. I want to argue with you so bad, but it's hard when you are reading my words right back to me.
Thank you, folks, for indulging with me. I just, you hear one or two listeners out in the world talking about how they always agree with Dan and Hoges. It's just nice to win one every now and again, Hoges.
I was so nervous, too, because right after you said, I promise you guys have said it. I'll find the receipts. And I was still pretty confident, but you were quiet for a while after that. So I was like, I don't think he found anything. And then I'm at work, and I get them all just piling in, and then I can't wait to record. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I think this would be a good episode for me to learn how to edit so we can just cut this whole part out right now.
Oh, man. Okay. Again, thank you for letting me indulge a bit here, but let's go ahead and jump into the series recap.
Series recap.
Game 1, Hoges. This one starts out with a bang for the Twins. Twins win this one 9-3. Pablo Lopez on the mound, sort of rebounding. Apparently, he's a second-half guy. Goes 7 innings pitched, 6 hits. He sort of scatters. Only 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Pablo's looking like Pablo of 2023, Hoges.
Yeah, and he only threw 97 pitches. So, there was some thought that maybe he'd get the 8th out there, too. But with the game being kind of out of reach, it was nice to go to those lower leverage guys in the bullpen. But yeah, after that Brewers game and then this one, too, it appears to be that he's back. I think we're starting to get a good little run here. He had a good start against the White Sox too. So this is very, very encouraging with the stretch run coming up, especially with Paddock being out.
You'd think they have more questions for Pablo about this turnaround, but all they wanted to talk about is how the vest got left home in the Twin Cities, so they couldn't celebrate the
Your
home
favorite.
runs properly.
'Cause my chest is cold and my arms aren't.
I don't understand the vest or Pablo's fascination with it, but everybody, it was just more natural. We didn't have to put a vest on backwards when you hit a home run. It's fine.
I like the hat. I wish they would just do the hat. I think that's sweet.
The hat would be more reasonable, certainly. But anyway, top of the first, Buxton and Larnach go back-to-back to put the Twins up 2-0, back-to-back solo shots, that is. And then in the top of the second, Wallner adds an additional solo shot, so the Twins are up 3-0. You'd think it's the Bomba squad at this rate, Hoges.
Oh, absolutely. It's nice seeing Wallner turn his season around after he got called back up. He's been absolutely on fire since he's been up with the big club again. It's nice to see him producing against good teams instead of just the White Sox. I thought maybe it was a bit of a flash in the pan, but it continued well in this series. And yeah, the ball was flying.
Bottom third here, Javi Baez, Hoges, hits a homer to put the Tigers only 2 runs down, 3-1 Twins at this point. Javi Baez is a very interesting story. How does a guy get paid as much money as he does after being a legit shortstop and just be so bad at baseball for so long now, Hoges?
He hasn't had very many good years after he was with the Cubs and then that short little stint with the Mets, but he's still getting paid like an all-star. And did you see today in the game when they lined up like 4 feet outside? Plouffe was having a heyday with it, which was pretty funny.
Vasquez was in the Twins' dugout calling for the pitch, and I think Baez still would have swung at it.
And he's a guy, too, where you keep thinking he's going to break back out again because he'll have games like in game 1 where he hits that home run. But, yeah, he's just not a very consistent ball player anymore.
No. Top of the fourth here, Wallner walks, Vasquez hits a single, and then Castro hits a single that shouldn't probably score both Wallner and Vasquez, but they both score, and then Castro advances to third on a throwing error by second baseman Colt Keith. Now, there's a bunch of discussion happening at this point between Provis and Plouffe because Colt Keith throws to first base, but there's literally no Tigers players anywhere near first base, and Plouffe is convinced he thought that the umpire was a Tigers player in the City Connect jersey.
Oh, I think he for sure did. Because I think what he did is he started to throw it and then realized it was the umpire, but he was too far, and that's why the ball just sailed on him. I think Wallner probably would have scored without that error. It looked like, they were going to send him home, and clearly he was going to first anyway. So it's weird that the official scoring is that Wallner scores on an error. You know what? This is a good question for Dan because I'm sure he can recite the rule book for us and all that.
Give us the point by point. You'll have to ask him next episode. But anyway, Byron tacks on a RBI double, so Twins are up 6-2. Top of the sixth, Lee hits a single, and then Vasquez, because Vasquez is all over this series, but he has a 2-run homer. The Twins up 8-2.
Isaac, you did something right.
No way. I wanted it to go to my head.
Bottom 8, Stalmont comes in. He can't keep the rhythm going here that Pablo had set, so he hits a guy, and then Vierling walks, and then Madris singles and scores Canna, so the Twins are still up 8-3. Top of the 9th, Kepler singles, Santana's hit by pitch, Wallner walks, and then Lee walks in a run, which is always a good thing for a young guy to get another RBI under his belt.
Yeah, I think him just seeing pitches, and I thought it was interesting with Dan in my conversation about the difference between him and Julian. It does appear that Lee has a really good eye. It's nice to see him get that RBI there and not bail a pitcher out in a bases loaded situation.
You would think that Julian would just swing a little bit more.
It's so
quite
frustrating.
fascinating.
I was feeling good after this game too. Buxton had a great game. I picked him for my Puckett's picks. It was looking real nice for me right away, and I needed a run here. I needed a real run.
Anyway, on to game 2 here. Twins lose this one 7-2. The Joe Ryan experience in full effect.
Wax on, wax off.
So he had an error on a pickoff throw. He lost track of the count at one point. He's talking to himself on the mound, doing his Olympic swimming warm-up routine. But he goes 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, and 8 Ks. His season ERA now is at 3.69. Still, Hogs, this season for Joe Ryan has been pretty successful.
Absolutely. Like, I know he was the guy that I picked to just kind of fade a lot this year, and he has been proving me wrong start in and start out. I think you can make a very solid argument that he's our number 1 starter, and it was nice to see him go toe-to-toe with Skubal in game 2.
Yeah, speaking of Skubal, this was rough here. After he gets warm, he goes 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. He struggles in the top of the first. Manny Margot singles, and then Royce Lewis, who cannot be held down, Hogs, hits a 2-run homer, puts the Twins up 2-0, but the Twins are unable to score the rest of the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I was that frustrated with this game because, like, Skubal is going to be in the conversation for AL Cy Young. It's a game that you're not going to have that great of a chance. It's frustrating that they couldn't get to the Tigers bullpen when they finally got him out for the 8th and the 9th, but good pitchers are going to pitch good. I mean, and that's what happened. I know that's a real in-depth analysis of this game, but he shut us down, and he's a good pitcher, so that's what happens.
Indeed. So bottom of the first here, Matt Vierling singles, and then this could have been an error, and Provis was actually surprised that it didn't get counted as an error. The ball sort of short-hopped on Miranda and hit him in the chest, and so Vierling's on first, and then Canna hits a single, makes it 2-1, Twins still up. And then bottom of the 6th, Matt Vierling is all over the place, Hogs, in this series, but he singles, Colt Keith triples on a weird hit down the line that bounces off of the padding going into the corner. So Manny Margot is in right field, because obviously if Max Kepler is there, Max Kepler would have either caught this ball, even though it was a grounder or something. He would have found some way to take care of this. And the reason why you would think it was Max Kepler is because Willie Castro was the one who actually retrieves the ball. And as we talk about, maximum effort is not what Max Kepler is known for.
Oh, in honor of Deadpool being out this weekend, I like the reference.
Yes. But anyway, so Vierling scores, the game's tied 2-2, and then Mark Canna sac fly scores Keith, and so Tigers lead 3-2, and then it gets out of hand here, Hogs, in the bottom of the 7th. Brock Stewart, making his return, has a real bad day. Madris singles, Baez another 2-run shot. The Tigers lead 5-2, and then Vierling walks. Okert replaces Stewart, and then Colt Keith hits a 2-run homer, and Tigers are up 7-2. And really, that's the end of a ball game, Hogs, that didn't need to get out of hand, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in Rocco's Rewind. But I was quite frustrated, even thinking that we were going to lose this game going into it. The Twins definitely had some opportunities.
Right, you get those 2 runs right away on Skubal, and then you just can't do anything after that, and it was all Tigers from there. Kind of a rough game to watch.
Twins go 0-for-4 with runners in scoring position, but they only leave 6 on base because there just wasn't that much traffic on the base paths. But going on here to game 3, a nice one to close out the series, Hogs. Twins win this one 5-0. Ober absolutely lights out. We'll talk about him a bit later. But top of the first is kind of a scary moment. Miranda's at bat, and he gets hit in the ear flap with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and there was just not a chance for him to get his head out of the way.
No, not at all. It came right in at him right away. He fell down. I mean, it just didn't move for a while, so it was a pretty scary situation there. It appears that he's going to be all right, though. They said he passed like all the preliminary concussion tests. Obviously, that stuff can kind of flare up later, so I think it was a good idea to take him out of that ball game there. But yeah, really, really scary moment, especially for a guy that, according to you, is going to be just the most dangerous hitter in baseball in 2 years. So we got to have him on our team.
Okay, so a couple of things here. So you had written a note here. Apparently, a listener had brought this to you, and so let's give me a second here.
Min for the win mailbag.
Of course nobody needs mail.
The listener writes in here and says, why can you talk about Miranda like he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but then you criticize us for saying Royce Lewis is going to be amazing? And so, first of all, Miranda has nearly triple the at-bats of Royce Lewis as far as data is concerned. And if you'll remember...
Sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that surprising that he has triple the amount of at-bats? It just doesn't feel like Miranda has been in the majors for that long. I still hold to the listener's point, but I was surprised that he has that many more at-bats than Lewis does.
Yes, but so what I said was that in the next 2 seasons, Miranda would be one of the most dangerous hitters in baseball. I said nothing about the Hall of Fame. And again, I've never said that Royce won't be amazing. What I've said about 1,000 times, and I think it's made its way into like 30 different episodes titles, is that this is a very small sample size with which to work, Hope.
I love how prepared you are today. You came in with guns blazing. You were ready to go. None of this nonsense. Your time off did you well. Your research. I got to stop putting notes in before these episodes start. I think that's kind of my...
Achilles heel.
Yes, there you go.
So then another note here that you had, Hoax. I don't know why you're giving me all this ammo, but you said, how does David criticize Joe Mauer for not having an ego and saying it led to a lack of championships, and then hate on guys like Bryce Harper for playing with some swagger? Well, here's the thing, Hoax. I don't know if you know this, but that's not a binary decision. It's not a Bryce Harper, Joe Mauer. Those are your 2 options. It's actually a scale, Hoax. When you're going to go buy a car, you're not limited to a 1994 Camry or a 2024 McLaren. That's not how this works, Hoax.
Theirs are like onions.
We got to get Dan to clip it now and say that you're comparing Joe Mauer to a 1994 Camry.
To say that comparison isn't apt is balderdash.
I got nothing. You're prepared. I'll give you the win again.
I'm more prepared than Rocco is when he has to make a decision on who should hit with a guy pitching with reverse splits.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my word. I'm still upset about that. I think Dan's still fuming quietly, too.
Okay, anyway, we have gotten off topic. I think we've covered all of the things that you've tried to bring against me, Hoax, and I have batted them down with ease, I would say.
Didn't
even break a sweat.
This is a very good day for you.
So, top of the second here, Lee's sacrifice fly scores Margot, and then top of the third, Santana's sacrifice fly to score Martin. And so this is one of those games, folks, where it just felt that the Twins never really got a big step up until very late in the game, but it did feel like they were getting runs across, just probably not as quickly as we would have liked.
Well, it was a little bit nerve-wracking, too, because Ober was absolutely dealing. He actually had a perfect game going until the 4th when Verling split it up, because, again, he was everywhere in this series, apparently. I don't know about you, I kind of had the feel when I was watching it that they needed to push some more runs across, because you don't want to waste a gem like that. You just don't want to see Ober get out in the 7th inning with a 2-0 lead, and then the Tigers come roaring back, but thankfully that didn't happen.
Definitely. Then top of the 7th, Wallner crushes a double to score Castro. So this was a weird play here in the bottom of the 6th where Wallner's coming in on a ball and Castro's coming out on a ball. The ball's in foul territory. They're both getting into the left field wall. Wallner just bulldozes Castro. And it's like, buddy, if you're trying to secure a roster spot, I don't think Willie Castro is the guy you want to take out.
Right. And it's funny because baseball players, they're not in close proximity to each other all that often. Like, there's all shapes and sizes that can play baseball. Wallner is a tank, though. He is a big dude. And we've seen him get hit by so many balls. I think he's got unbreakable bones also. So him just like shouldering
another
Castro,
Wolverine Deadpool
right?
reference. How about that?
And him just shouldering Castro. Like, Wallner doesn't even move, and Castro goes flying. And I think Castro was kind of ticked because when Castro stood back up and Wallner was like gentle giant, like, oh no, and Castro just runs away. But hey, then he gets the doubles him in later, so all's well. It looked like Castro was fine from running into that brick wall.
Yes, and then top of the 9th, Twins add a couple of runs here, and a Martin doubles in Vasquez, and then Jeffers finally gets a hit with the bases loaded. Again, Twins come away with this one 5-0. But let's go ahead and jump into our segments, Hoax.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
No celebration to be had for either of us, Hoax. The listeners actually are going to take the victory here. They took Royce Lewis, unsurprisingly, and always the right choice. He had 9 points. You actually came in second, Hoax, with Buxton, who had 4. Dan came in third, taking Kepler after mocking him for the entirety of last episode.
That was so shocking to me.
Getting 0 points. And then I took Santana, who just couldn't help himself, -2. And I should note here, no bonus here for Lewis because Christian Vasquez actually with a high on the team with 10, which is just, I don't know that we've ever said that, Hoax.
No, we definitely have not. And yeah, this one was frustrating, like I already said earlier. Like, but I thought after game 1 I was looking good, but yeah, Lewis with that home run in game 2 really sealed this for him.
All right, well, looking at the season standings here, I'm still in the lead with 17, Hoax in second with 11.5, the listeners in third at 7, and then Dan all the way down in fourth at 6.5. One thing that's interesting, if you look at the season points scored, I'm in the lead there there, which isn't that surprising because of my lead, but I'm only up on the listeners by 12 points. They're actually in second by points scored.
I bet if you looked at like what place we've all gotten the most, that they've gotten second the most. It just seems like their picks are less feast or famine than the rest of ours are, which makes sense with them picking first. It should be a lot better. But yeah, it's been a really, really fun Puckett's picks year because guys have been hot interchangeably, where we thought from the beginning of the year it was going to be Correa, Lewis, Buxton every single time. And there's been a lot more variety than we thought there would be with that. I mean, Santana's been picked the last 5 or so series, it feels like. So yeah. It's good for our competition, and it's great news for the Twins.
Absolutely. Well, with that, let's go on to Beast versus Bench.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
Well, we were just talking about his tank-like nature. I'll let you go first, Hoges.
Yeah, I picked Matt Wallner. Like, ever since he's got called up again from AAA, he has been absolutely lights out. He hit a home run in Game 1. He didn't play in Game 2. And then in Game 3, he went 2 for 4 with a double that we talked about with scoring Castro. And his OPS now on the year is 938. So just an excellent comeback for him. I'm glad that the AAA seems to have sorted him out, that little stint. And hopefully he continues this, because that's nice to have in left field with that production.
Well, especially when he's the only guy on the roster from Minnesota who's producing, which is kind of nice. I mean, I guess Thielbar did close out the game today, but 5-0, is that really, I mean, how helpful is that? Willie Castro, I think, could have closed out this game.
Yeah, I don't want Thielbar in a game that's any closer or farther than 5. Like, he should not be in there then.
That's the over-under for Thielbar pitching. But I'm going to go with Ober just because, again, absolutely dominant here in Game 3. And he looked the part of a guy who would not be denied, right? He just kept throwing the ball. He goes 8 innings pitched, only 1 hit, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts. He just looked so confident.
Yeah, and I mocked you. I normally mock you for picking pitchers in this situation, but this is a good one. He won Game 3 and won the series for the Twins, so I think that's a fantastic pick.
Pablo, again, had a great outing, but I mean, Ober's outing was just that much of a higher level than what Pablo did in Game 1.
Well, yeah, and to be able to only throw 98 pitches and go 8 innings with 1 hit, I mean, even Dan would probably call that impressive.
Now, my bench, Hoges, I'm probably a bit biased here, but I'm going to give it to Santana. Yes, he played well in the field, and yes, he had a couple of hits in Game 2, but he goes 2 for 12 with 5 strikeouts. It's just, he's not a guy who's known for striking out all that much, and it's pretty important that he's putting the ball in play, especially knowing that there's a lot of guys on base in front of him. So I was a little bit disappointed, but again, I'm probably biased in this situation because he did so poorly for me for Puckett's picks.
I think if you're picking a position player, that's who you have to pick, though. It was really tough looking at the box scores after today's game on who to pick because everyone kind of chipped in. No one really stood out a whole ton on the position player, but no one really had that bad of a series. Santana probably had the worst, so I think that's a good pick. I'm going to do something that I hate doing. I'm picking a pitcher and taking the easy way out because Brock Stewart gave up all those runs in his 0.2 innings pitched. I'm not worried about him yet. I think he's an integral part of this team with Alcala, Jax, Duran. He's got to be there at the back end of the bullpen, but I think we can give him a few more appearances before we start freaking out.
Well, that segues really well into Rocco's Rewind, so let's keep pushing.
Rocco's Rewind.
So, Game 2, Ryan gives you 6 good innings. You're down 1 run, and Skubal has probably 1 inning left. You had an off day on Thursday. The game before, you needed to use nobody of consequence, so you used Stalmont and Thielbar in Game 1. So you have Duran, Jax, and Alcala all on 2 days rest. It's a 1-run game. You know you have Ober on the mound the next day, who has a habit of running deep into games. Why on earth are you going with your B squad here of Stewart, who's fresh off of the IL, just getting back into a groove, when you could have gone with your A lineup and kept this a 1-run game?
I think it's a fundamental difference, and we've complained about this so much in how Rocco views high leverage situations. If the Twins are losing, it's not a high leverage situation for him. Like it's so frustrating to me, but that's just kind of how he views it. And I don't understand it. I think you could also make the argument, like I know Ryan ended up giving up those runs in the 6th, but he probably could have kept him in for another inning and had him go out there in the 7th too. I think both of those options are better than going to the B squad, like you said. But I wish a 1-run game when they're losing wasn't considered low leverage or medium leverage. Like that should still be your high leverage guns, especially, and this is important, when those guys are fresh.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
Big brain Rocco, though, Hoges. He's got it all figured out. Anyway, what do you have for Rocco?
This is just going to be all deja vu. We're complaining about the same Rocco things every single time.
He is beating that dead horse.
But why are we pinch hitting with Manny Margot? Can we be done? Why can't we be done? Like, I'm so frustrated with it. Honestly, when I was watching the game and he came in, I thought it was a joke. I was like, there's no way Rocco thinks he's going to get a hit here. Enough. When is enough? Does he have to be 0 for 100 and then maybe he'll stop? I mean, 0 for 26 has got to be pretty dang close to being enough.
Hang on a minute. We could use a pinch.
It's like Rocco's motto. He wakes up in the... We talked about him replacing his children at the dinner table when the spaghetti is getting a little too messy. He gets a bit twitchy, Hogs, when it's been too long since he's used a pinch hitter.
You can't pinch hit with him, though. And there's nothing... It's not even like a slight on Manny Margot. I feel like some guys just can't figure that out, and it's not a comfortable position for them to be in.
Okay. Well, with that here, let's go on to happier
You're not as mad.
here.
You're not as mad as I want you to be. Like, how are you okay with this guy coming in who's 0 for 26?
I just have a very happy approach to life, Hogs. I'm not
You're just happy. You're just happy that you've embarrassed me this entire episode. I don't think anything can happen that will wipe that sick smile off your face right now.
It's been a good episode from this chair. I'll say that much. No, but truly, it's one of those things that I've resigned myself to the fact that, like, that's just how Rocco is. Like, and this isn't the first time I've even saying that this season. Is me just saying I'm at peace with Rocco's decisions here that I fundamentally disagree with, which is continually pulling your better hitter for a worse hitter because of the matchups. I don't buy it. I realize Gleeman wrote an article explaining why I'm wrong. I don't care. I would much rather see a lefty like Larnach hit against a left-handed pitcher than Margot come in to strike out again for the 300th time.
Oh, you sound so old there. But here's the thing. It's going to be Game 7 of the World Series, bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, and they're going to pinch hit Manny Margot with 2 outs, and the Twins are going to lose the World Series, and you're going to be like, oh, it's just what Rocco does.
It's the cows.
Sometimes you just got to say it's the cows.
Sometimes you do.
Okay, let's keep going here. Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
Hogs, why can't the Guardians lose when we win? So the Guardians are playing the Phillies. I'm getting so frustrated because I'm thinking, okay, the Phillies just lost 2 of 3 to us. They're looking to get some vengeance. They're going to Cleveland. It's going to be a rough go. What do you know, Hogs? They take 2 of 3 from the Phillies in the same order. They go win, loss, win. Why can't they lose, Hogs, on a game that we win? I'm just begging them to do so.
It's so frustrating. Like, it's fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this battle is going to be very, very fun. I think we have to finally admit that the Guardians are good. Like,
I refuse. I just absolutely refuse to admit that.
Oh, yeah, it just kills me. It just every time. And even at the game, you look up and you're like, oh, we're winning. How are the Guardians doing? Oh, they won 10-2 earlier today. Like, come on. And against the Phillies, too, when they lost Game 2, I'm like, here we go. Well, maybe Game 3, we'll get one on them. No, they win again today.
Quite infuriating. What's your Minnesota moment, Hogs?
I don't have one. And I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I'm the one who came up with this segment of the podcast for you guys when you were first starting out. I wanted it to be something that really, like, summed up the series in one play. It's really hard to do for this series because when you watch the game, nothing of note really happened. They won 2 of 3. They won the 2 that you probably would have predicted they were going to win they didn't win when Schoolball was on the mound. No huge moments. They were kind of all blowout games. This team is beating bad teams, and it's exciting because they need to with how tight this division race is. And the Red Sox are only 2.5 back in the wild card, so that's tight still too, although they do have a lead on the Royals as well. But there wasn't anything super memorable about this series. It kind of just went the way that I thought it would go, and that was it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not disappointed in the results at all. Like 2 out of 3 is great. I think this was a very good series, but there wasn't anything spectacular that really happened. It was just a matter of fact series win, and I think that's good. I'm glad that we're saying that about this team.
Agreed. Well, with that, Hogs, let's go on to Mauer's musing.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
Assuming all players are healthy, okay? There's nobody on the IL, okay? Between AAA, the Major League roster, everybody's healthy. What's your position player roster at this point?
It's tough, because it's interesting, like who you're gonna send up or send down based on who's performing. But I think if you have everyone there in the outfield, I'd go Kepler, Buxton, and Wallner. I think that's pretty solid right now with how Wallner's been producing. Santana, Lee, Correa, Lewis as position players, and then Vasquez catching with how hot he's been lately. Like it's bizarre right now. And you still have guys like Castro that have to be in that mix. Like I don't know. I think it's a good problem to have. But what would you do?
Yeah, so I like all of the names you said. The only thing that gets tricky is I think Miranda's your DH, and I probably go with Jeffers over Vasquez. I think Castro comes off the bench. Lee and Castro are a bit interchangeable. I'd say that's the only other one that I'd probably disagree with here. But the reason why I asked this question, Hoax, is because looking at 2025, we lose basically none of the people that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Like all of them are here except for Kyle Farmer, who suspiciously wasn't in your ideal lineup for some reason.
No, he was not.
He was healthy. But so I think the reason I asked this question is because it gets tricky because of how full the infield is and because of your outfield options. But I asked this question as sort of a precursor, knowing what your question is.
Oh, absolutely. I think it rolls into it really nicely. But I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Dan. It's kind of fun being on the podcast, like trade deadline week, because there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. But who's untouchable for you out of that group? Who don't you trade?
I don't think you trade any of the names that we just talked about. I don't think you can touch them. But the thing is, all of those guys are long-term guys at this point for this Twins team. And so the question really becomes, who's untouchable, who's not on the major league roster currently? And I don't know that there's that many guys who I'm like, nope, can't trade him. Nope, can't trade him. Like, you think about some of those guys that we've taken in trades that we've gotten over the offseason here, the guys we got back for Polanco, for instance, Salas and Gonzalez. Like, some of these guys are still early in their development. And like, yeah, you're not going to trade a guy like Wally Jenkins or someone like that. But I guess for me, I don't know that there's that many guys in our minor league system that I would consider are untouchable. The only question I have is, are we talking about just for the remainder of this season or this season and next season? Because so much of this question, Hogs, relies upon the front office being able to spend some money in the offseason to get another couple of arms in. And it just doesn't seem like they're going to do that, which is, if you're going to own a baseball team, folks, at any time, this is the dumbest way you could possibly own a baseball team. Your team finally has some success. You have a great solid core of players, and you refuse to finally inject some fresh money into a club who's honestly on the cusp of being perennial contenders for World Series, not just making the postseason and winning a series finally, to play in the World Series. We're probably one good arm away and maybe one heavy right-handed bat, and then all of a sudden this roster looks dangerous going into the postseason. But if you're going to own a baseball team and you refuse to put money in when they're successful, sell the team at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the situation that they're in right now, they have, I mean, think about it. We just named our ideal rosters, and I know you said you would maybe switch Castro for Lee. I had an all-star on the bench, and you're having Miranda DH. Like, there is a lot of talent, and that's not even talking about Kirilloff and Julian and guys that would probably be able to fetch something. You'd think you could get a guy that doesn't just have to be a rental starter that can stick around for next year, that you wouldn't have to pay an absolutely absurd amount of money. It's a little hard to look at this now because Ryan, Lopez, and Ober are looking so good, but I think that still is a need. It makes me feel happier now than it maybe did a week ago, but that's a huge need. And even if you push Ober down to like a number 4 guy, that rotation is sweet.
Yeah, I don't think Ober is a number 4 guy.
No,
and
absolutely
I
not.
think he's a solid number 2 starter.
Yes.
And again, if you take away, he's kind of like Kenta Maeda, like last season, where if you take away like 3 bad starts from him, he's got ridiculous numbers.
Yeah.
It's like, just the games where he's bad, he's real bad. So it's just, if he could get those games in check and give up 5 runs instead of 10, his ERA would be like 2.1.
Yeah.
know?
Oh, absolutely. It's just, we're in such a frustrating situation with ownership right now because, I mean, welcome to being a Twins fan to a certain extent, but they're on the cusp. This is a team that can absolutely compete and has such a glaring need where that starting could fill it, and we have the chips to do it, and all of us think that they probably won't really do that much.
I think you're right, though. I think what it comes down to is I'm willing to give up virtually anybody who we didn't mention if it means we get a quality starter for next season as well as the remainder of this season.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Ugh. Okay, well, let's go on. Let's grade the series here, Hoax.
series grades.
So I'm going to give him an A-, Hogs, because here's the thing. You lost the one you were likely going to lose, and you won the others pretty dominantly. I mean, they could have swept, obviously, had they had a little bit more offensive production or had Rocco made some different decisions when it comes to bullpen usage. But I think you did what you were supposed to here in a away series against a Tigers team that's not great, but I don't think they're terrible either.
I can't really argue with that. I think if I looked at this series beforehand and I said they'd win 2 out of 3 and lose to a Cy Young contender, I'd give them an A. But just the fact that they lost that game 7-2, I bumped it down to a B, but we're arguing semantics at that point.
Well, with that, let's keep going here. Herbie's headlines, where there's all sorts of trade deadline news already, Hogs.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
Now, we should mention, though, first of all, one of Dan's favorite topics. Dylan Cease for the San Diego Padres threw a no-hitter with 3 walks. I just think it's important that we talk about this momentous occasion that doesn't happen in baseball every other week, Hogs.
I love it. I was so happy to see it. I honestly, when I saw it was happening, I wanted there to be like 5 walks just because it makes me even happier. But yeah, it doesn't happen that often. It's something to be absolutely praised and admired, and we should continue to talk about these great moments when they happen because it's so rare and it's such an impressive accomplishment.
It's becoming a little less rare, but yeah, I'd still say yes, it is an impressive accomplishment. I'm sure the listeners, Hogs, if they care, they've been following this pretty closely, but there's been a lot of moves already. So the Mets get Stanek from the Mariners, and then the Orioles get Elfline from the Rays. And then this is the trade that I thought was the most interesting. The Red Sox get Paxton from the Dodgers, which both of those teams, Hogs, I think are likely to make the postseason. And then obviously the 2 big ones here, the Mariners getting a Rosarina from the Rays, and then the Yankees getting Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins for like apparently the entire Yankees system.
Yeah, it's been wild already. There's so many big names that have already moved around. I think the Mariners are so far would be my team to watch after all of these.
Yeah.
It's also exciting. Like Julio Rodriguez is already a fun guy to watch, and now they got a Rosarena too. Like I feel like Dan's got to love that. I know they're not his second team because when you're a twin, like he doesn't really have a second team, but as a team that he kind of likes to follow, that's exciting to have those 2 young guys in that outfield.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun season to watch close out. And again, I know that none of us love the new postseason format, but it is fun to watch the trade deadline antics due to the way that they have so many teams that make the postseason.
Well, we complain about it every year, and then without fail, that first wild card game where there's like 4 games going on, we all text each other, "This is awesome, we love it so much." So yeah, there's a little bit of speaking out of both sides of our mouth there, but hey, I don't care.
Do you think it's just because we're old men and we don't want to admit that we like new things? Is that the problem, Hogs?
It's for sure yelling at clouds. But I mean, not to get real deep into this, but baseball is a sport of attrition. Like, you have to make it through all of these long things, and none of us want the regular season to be devalued, but it's still, I think both things can be true. It is still fun watching that many teams in the postseason.
Absolutely. Well, with that, Hogs, let's go on to Puckett's picks for the upcoming Mets series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's picks.
Well, no surprise here. The listeners are going to take Lewis. No word yet on Correa as far as a potential return, and we obviously don't know the status of Miranda, but I'm going to go with Buxton because I think he's a surefire guy to at least play in one of these games. And then Dan takes Santana off the board, and that leaves you, Hogs.
Oh, this one's tough because like you said, we don't know the status of Correa. We don't know the status of Miranda. They do play tomorrow night, too. I'm going to go with Miranda. The early returns look like he's going to be okay. I'm a little surprised, honestly, that you didn't pick him for your bench because he got hit in the face, and apparently that's what you like to do with Twins players. But yeah, I'm going to take Miranda. I think he's going to bounce back, and hopefully he's okay.
I am not throwing away my shot.
I'm sure he's fine. Does it make you giggle a little bit when you see him wearing a necklace?
Why are you saying that after we talk about a guy getting hit in the head? And then what does it make you giggle? I was like, where is he going with this right now?
One of the reasons why I think that he's going to be a dangerous hitter, or seen as one of the most dangerous hitters in the next couple of seasons, is because it takes a lot of confidence, Hogs, to wear your own number on a necklace, I guess is what I would say. And so I just think a guy who's willing to do that and who can sing all of the Hamilton songs by heart, he just seems like a guy who's going to be successful.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Okay. Well, Hogs, I'm going to be out the next couple of episodes. I'm going to be in Indy playing board games. I know think that is just the worst idea possible, but I absolutely love it. I'm sure I'll be following these games closely regardless, but I'm excited to hear what you and Dan have to say. I doubt there'll be as much past digging as took place in this episode.
You came prepared. But yeah, have fun, I guess. I don't know if that is what happens when you go to these.
Yes.
Is it fun?
Oh, it's the most fun, Hogs. It's the most fun. If you're going to Gen Con, folks, I'm sure there's a lot of crossover here. Try and find me. I wear Twin stuff every day, and I bring stickers if I see other Twins fans. It's a fun time.
Oh, man.
There's more of a crossover than you'd think, Hogs, between board games and baseball. Who knew? But with that, I'm going to go ahead and send us out. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform so that you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you could find us on Patreon. Link in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.